Happy 4th of July, everyone. Today is Wednesday. It is the 4th of July. I'm late right now. Been having a lot of fun with friends and family for the holiday. And I actually had to do this video because I put it out there yesterday that I was going to be doing a video today pertaining to the recent Supreme Court decision that took place last week on Wednesday. And this was the Supreme Court ruling 5-4 in favor of workers in the case of Janus versus Afscme. So Afscme is the American Federation of State and Municipal County Employees. If you have looked at some of the news stories, you've probably seen that they were saying it's a blow to labor. They're undermining them. You probably heard the terms about national rights, a national rights law. And labor right now is losing their mind. They're going crazy. So right now they've enacted a whole fear campaign. They've pretty much governed by fear for the longest. Sound familiar? Just like the Democratic Party. So, having said that, I am a person who has a labor background. And I remember at one point in time when I was still involved, and I was actually at a labor meeting, it was mentioned they go over all the news and things that are going on, things that have an impact on organized labor. And I remember them constantly talking about this Janus versus Afscme case. But there was also 26 pending Supreme Court cases that were similar actually to Janus versus Afscme. Now, what that actually was that workers were saying that they should not be forced to pay union dues. If they don't want to participate in the union, if they don't want to be involved, they should not be mandated to pay union dues. And prior to last week, Wednesday, June the 27th, workers who were part of unions were mandated to pay dues. That changed last week with that decision. And so basically, what it means is just that they won't be mandated anymore. They'll have a choice. They'll have an option whether they want to pay union dues or not. And as far as I know, everyone likes to have a choice. Now, I am also familiar with organized labor and the labor movement and what these implications actually mean. But for the most part, I've said for the longest time that unions would be the facilitators of their own demise. Why would they be the facilitators of their own demise? Because of the way that they operate. Because their leadership never moves. You can't be a labor movement if your leadership is in office for 20 plus years. And you wonder why things aren't changing. You wonder why your workers aren't happy. You wonder why your workers don't feel strongly or passionately about the work that it is that you do. And so, one of the things that I was always talking about when I was involved in labor was term limits for the presidents. I don't believe a president should be in office for 20 years. A governor can't be in office for 20 years. A United States president can't be in office for 20 years. So there should be term limits. I think you may have heard Trump was talking about term limits for Congress. I think that is a fabulous idea. I think it's wonderful because it would keep us fresh. It would keep us innovative. It would keep talent coming in, creativity, ideas, big, bold ideas, and it would keep us mobilized and moving forward. It would keep us being progressive. However, I used to try to talk to labor bosses. I've gotten to riffs with them, arguments with them because they were against term limits. And we obviously know why, because they're more interested in keeping their pockets lined. But anything that is able to sit and stay in office for such a long time is bound to get corrupt. And if you look up some of these union institutions, you will find out that there's tons of corruption that have been going on over the years with them. And the workers aren't the one who benefit from that corruption. Workers pay dues, and they have no say-so as to how those dues are spent. So it's difficult. Dues does pay for benefits and different things that way, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes there's other things that are going on. Now, I can't speak for every union, but I can tell you the majority of workers felt disenchanted about their union, at least the leadership. They believe in the organization as a whole, but they were disenchanted with the leadership. And so this also made me think about bringing up, there were some articles that I had shared with some leadership, and, they kind of shunned and kind of just like threw me off because they didn't want to have a discussion about it. So this article was written by Amy Dean. This is back in 2010. And what Amy was saying is the name of this article was Term Limits. You can see it. Term Limits for Labor Leaders. Amy says that the average CEO currently sits for only 4.2 years, down from 10.5 years ago. So this was 2010. So basically, Amy was saying that CEO of a company is only around for about 4 years. And then there's a new face that comes in. So here are some of the reasons that Amy says why she's for term limits. Leaders can only give the best of themselves for so long. The top labor jobs are so demanding and exhausting that it is impossible for any one person to carry the burden indefinitely and remain at the top of their game. They need to be able to draw on a deep bench of up-and-coming leaders to help bear the load. Labor loses talent. Top up-and-coming leaders feel they are stuck in treading water for decades. Many start looking outside the movement for greater leadership opportunities that might be a boon to our society at large, but it's not something that labor can afford on a large scale. So, for example, for people to respect and follow leadership, my argument was that they need leadership that looks like them. So they've been constantly trying to get the youth involved in organized labor, trying to educate the youth, tell them why it's important to be part of a union. And that has been difficult to get them to even be interested about it. But in part, it's that way because they don't feel like the leadership actually represents them and their needs. And so that's something that needed to be addressed, but it has not been. So workers decided to walk away, and the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. I remember when Judge Scalise passed, and organized labor was celebrating. They were actually happy that Judge Scalise had passed because it froze this Janus versus Afscme case. It stopped it. So basically, it was tied, and they couldn't do anything about it. And two, obviously, a new Supreme Court got appointed. So, Trump's election meant so many things for so many reasons. But, the last thing that they wanted was another conservative judge being appointed. And that's exactly what ended up happening. And guess what? That decision went down, the one that they didn't want, and it went in the workers' favor. So kudos to Janus. You guys won, and obviously you have affected the entire country because, once it goes to Supreme Court, that's the law of the land. So, good. Great job. So, the next thing I would just want to cover very shortly also with union leaders, which is, this is something else that happened during the 2016 election. I have a headline. This article was written by Ralph Nader, and it's called Big Union Leaders Betray Sanders and Workers. So, big union leaders betray Bernie Sanders and workers. So, around a conference table inside the large Washington headquarters of the AFL-CIO, A furious exchange occurred between labor union presidents. Okay, and this had to do with the decision by the Executive Council was whether the country's principal labor federation was going to make a primary season endorsement of Hillary Clinton as favored by the leaders of the largest union. So the leaders favored Hillary Clinton, but the workers, the rank and file, favored Bernie Sanders. So according to insiders, tempers flared when smaller unions challenged the Hillary-endorsing big unions such as Afscme, the American Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, the Service Employees and Food and Commercial Workers. These large unions came out for Clinton in late 2015 and early 2016 before they sensed the growing rank and file workers' preference for the lifetime advocate for workers and union backer Bernie Sanders. The Afscme, Lee Saunders, the president of the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, Afscme, they're in Washington, D.C. Larry Saunders said, "I will not allow you to do a commercial for Sanders." The union leader retorted, "You mean the only candidate who has a 100% labor record?" A union leader of postal workers charged the unions backing Hillary as being completely out of touch with their workers. AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka, if you're a Teamster worker, Richard Trumka is for your international union. Trumka then cut off their microphones. Okay? So basically, what this article is just saying is that union leadership were all in the tank for Hillary Clinton. But guess what? Their workers were not. The workers supported Bernie Sanders. The rank and file workers wanted Bernie Sanders. And they basically said, shut up. This is what we're going to do. And there's nothing you can do about it. So, hey, this also contributes to why workers decided they want to walk away. So, I mean, in essence, these workers are empowered now. Basically, they are the ones that are able to now make the decision as to if they want to support a union or not. They don't have to pay dues. It's optional now for them. So, you will probably hear terrible headlines. Labor's probably going to be really cranky, complaining about this. But at the end of the day, there's a reason why. I have really close friends who are still involved in the union. And, they kind of understood that this was coming down and all the reasons as to why. So basically, I mean, for the leadership, if you wanted to change this, if you wanted to stop this from happening, maybe you should have listened to your members. Maybe you should have listened to the people who actually pay your salaries, who actually afford you the lifestyles that you have. But you didn't. And so it caught up with you. And, what goes around comes around. And so now you guys are kind of paying for that. And that's okay. So mostly people still will be able to be part of a union, but they just won't be forced to actually pay union dues. So I don't see what's the big deal with that. It's okay. It's a reason why, but it happened and that's it. So with that said, unions, you are responsible. You and you only are the facilitators of your own demise. I don't know if folks know, but there's only about 7% of unions left in this country. And after this decision just came down, expect those numbers to decline and actually go down. And it's no one's fault but your own. It's not Trump's fault. Trump is giving people choices and options, and I don't think people are going to have a problem with that. So, if members, you're actually thinking that this is so terrible. Your leadership is going to run around pretty much executing a fear campaign. You still have a union. You still can participate in it. And if you participate, then you'll get the services that come with that. And that's it. That's the bottom line. So with that said, Independence Day, freedom, let freedom ring. And I'm sorry to anyone who actually really has a problem with this, but really, they brought this on themselves. So again, another reason to walk away. Okay? Because union workers just got to walk away. Good for them. I'm very happy for them. So with that said, everyone have a very, very happy 4th of July. It is wonderful reading your comments. I've been getting lots of love and support. Someone asked me about my pictures in a video or something. Yes, that is Weird Science, my movie posters. And this is big. 1986, 1987, one of my favorite movies. I just love it. And I even actually went back to the neighborhood of where it was filmed and produced because I wanted to know more about it. Don't ask me why. It's a little weird, but I loved it. You know, the 80s was all about fantasy. Great, great things. So anyway, that's big. That's Tom Hanks, that popular scene where he was dancing on the piano with this other guy that worked at the toy store. And yes, that's Weird Science. So anyway, with that said, I will see you guys on the next video. What I will be talking about then, I am not sure, but some people have given me some ideas. And so I might actually take those things into consideration, or I may just wing it. Who knows? So happy 4th of July. Oh, I tried to do blue, red, and I got red shoes on. So bye, everyone.